Catches, puts up a three. One go. Rebound box.
Now head over in this direction. Gone to three.
Tie game with 5 seconds remaining. The impossible has happened.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
Anthony for three. Puts it in. Bridges. Oh my God. Oh, what? Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection. Curry way downtown. Bang! Bang!
We are back. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cam's Corner. Very excited to sit down today with WPRI 12 and Fox Providence sports director and the man on camera, Morey Hershgordon. Morey, pleasure is mine, man. Thank you for joining the show.
No, Cam, thanks so much for having me on, pal. Happy to be here.
Yeah, no problem, man. I know this time of year in March is especially busy for you at Fox Providence. You know, having the opportunity to follow the Friars and the historic year they just had, you know, being such a big PC fan, I wanted to ask you firsthand, what was that experience like having the chance to cover PC in March Madness and travel to all the venues that they were fortunate enough to make it to?
Yeah, it was a great 3 weeks, right? I mean, we started in New York City at the Big East tournament. That part's always a given, right? They're always going to be regardless of the year that they have. But then to go to Buffalo, they were a trendy upset pick to lose to South Dakota State. A lot of people had them as the 4 seed getting knocked off by the 13. And then they were fortunate. I'm not going to use that L word that a lot of people use for them this year, but they were fortunate. Richmond caught Iowa on a bad day. And then PC blasted Richmond, and then we were able to go to Chicago. So between New York City and Buffalo and Chicago, it was a really fun 3 weeks. And just a lot of credit to the team, a lot of credit to head coach Ed Cooley. You know, anytime they were counted out this year, they came through. 27 wins is the second most they've ever had in pro history. They won their first ever Big East regular season championship. So the last 3 weeks were amazing. How about the last 6 months as a whole? It was one of the best years in program history.
Of course, definitely historical. Ed Cooley having a great year as well with head coach. Al Durham coming from Indiana, you know, played a big role. Have you ever traveled with a team before, similar to this past experience?
That's a good question. I have a few times before. Back in college, I haven't done it yet, professionally. My first few years, there wasn't an NCAA tournament run. In college, I went to Quinnipiac University. Our women's basketball team made a similar run. They went to the Sweet 16, so I got to fly with the team. We went to Miami, and then we went out to Central California for the Sweet 16 then. And I did the same with our men's ice hockey team, who made it to the national championship in 2016. Wow. So experience, but this time I was cashing a paycheck. This time was a bigger audience. This time, I'm going to say it was a lot more fun. A top 4 seed men's basketball was the first time in my career I was covering a men's basketball tournament, and just the appreciation and the fan support for PC was on a different level this year. And hopefully they have another one of these runs coming soon, because it was a great few weeks. Yeah,
definitely. And staying on the topic of PC, you also hosted PC Hoops with Ed Cooley, and how was that experience? Having the chance to sit down with Ed Cooley, having the chance maybe to talk with players post game and things like that.
Yeah, that was a tremendous opportunity. We'd like to think at Channel 12 that we earned that. The PC that wanted to partner with us for a few different reasons. One being our coverage and our commitment, regardless of win or loss, and regardless of sport, really. We're there. Men's basketball steals the spotlight. Ed steals the spotlight, but we're there for soccer. We're there for women's basketball. We're there covering men's ice hockey. So, the coverage is spread across the entire athletic department. Obviously, a big focus is men's basketball in the Dunkin' Donuts Center. And the fact that we are the Fox affiliate and the Big East is partnered with Fox also. Right. So to acquire the show from a competitor. And with the 5 episodes that everybody saw this year, it's only going to get bigger and better. We've got big plans for next year.
Oh, definitely. Very excited to see, what you guys have in store. Like I told you, being a huge PC fan, it's just so cool what you guys have done. And, having the chance to sit down with you when you came to Rick and spoke with one of my classes, it's very cool and eye-opening to see how far you've came, all the experiences you've had. I actually had the chance to sit down with PC legend Ernie D for one of my episodes on the podcast. One of the teams fortunate enough to make it to the Final Four, back in the 70s. So, I can only imagine how cool it's been, like I said, with Ed Cooley and all these guys that have been making it, like how they just did in the Sweet 16. But back to like your career, not only like a sports reporter, but you're also an arena voice for the basketball tournament Northeast Regional Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight games, which were broadcast on ESPN. So how fun was that? And explain that experience, how that was back when you did that.
Yeah, that was great. That was I was in college at that point. That was summer of 2015 and summer of 2016. That was tremendous. The basketball tournament is literally March Madness in the summertime. For people that don't know, it's on all the ESPN family of networks. A lot of big names, a lot of former big college basketball stars are in that tournament. Unfortunately, no NBA guys can play, current NBA, but there's plenty of ex-NBA players that have played in it, whether it's Jason Williams, whether it's Mike Bibby, up and down the list. And a lot of guys that play overseas in the second, the third, the fourth best leagues in the world end up coming back, getting exposure on ESPN, and then going and signing contracts in the NBA and getting back to that stage. So able to be the in-arena voice for those tournaments and those rounds was awesome. That's still one of the best jobs in sports, as great as it is to report and anchor, to be able to give the starting five on the public address system with a sold out arena is there's few rushes that you get adrenaline wise that can compare to that.
Yeah. And I'm slowly getting that experience, with Rick, having the chance to like broadcast games. I've done like PA, like over like loudspeakers, obviously nothing compared at all to what you've done so far, but hopefully, in hopes to get to that someday, but definitely very, very cool. Have you done that in like any other setting, or was that the first time like you were like the in arena voice? Yeah.
So I had a lot of reps with some major high school basketball tournaments. I worked for a guy named Jeremy Treatman, who I consider one of my mentors. And he was actually on the coaching staff at Lower Merion. I'm from Philadelphia. He was on the coaching staff for Kobe Bryant when Kobe was there. There's a gal called The Rise that was written by Mike Sealski, a writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And all of the interviews and tapes to be able to write that book came from Jeremy. Jeremy, who coached Kobe in high school, ended up becoming a mover and a shaker in the basketball world. Broadcaster as well, but started these national high school basketball showcase tournaments, featured LeBron James 3 times during his high school career, brought him in Lester in Philadelphia, so on and so forth, has had over 100 high school players end up becoming NBA players that are from his tournaments over the past 20 years. So I traveled the country with him, primarily based out of the Philadelphia area, but we'd also go down North Carolina, Duke. We went out west to Cleveland, to Columbus, to Indianapolis. So that's where I got a lot of reps, being the public address announcer at a lot of those tournaments. And it obviously started super small. I started doing them at girls' high school basketball games. And then I was doing them at some boys' games at like some local Division II, Division III colleges back home. And then eventually, just kind of worked my way up and got good enough and built enough trust with Jeremy where I did a game at the first ever LeBron James Classic at St. Vincent St. Mary's, the high school that LeBron was at. Did public address at North Carolina at the Dean Dome. So had a lot of great experiences with that. And again, like I said, it's one of the most thrilling experiences that you can get in sports, especially when you go to the Dunkin' Donuts Center and John, who's the play-by-play guy for PC, gets on the air, and his AJ Reeves or his Nate Watson or his Al Durham, that lights up the crowd. And that really, the public address announcer sets the tone for the game, right? You get the national anthem, you get all of those cool things beforehand, but they do the starting five and then they tip off the game. So if your public address announcer is really good and you've got a great crowd, which PC had this year, then that PA announcer can really set the tone for the start of that game and really get the energy going in the building. So that's some of my past experience doing PA. That was sort of a long-winded answer there, but again, like I said in the last answer, I mean, it's one of the best things you can do in all of sports.
Yeah, most definitely. And not even just like with PA and, being on camera at WPRI and everything that you've done, like those pregame jitters, like when you first started off, do you still have those like similar, like not like nervous in a way, but like you're kind of like, all right, some like get ready, like your mindset's got to tap in and things like that. Like, has it been Has that changed over the years? Or have you always been like, had that same kind of mindset going into things?
No, that's a great question, Cam. It definitely has stayed the same.
Yeah.
I would say I've understood and learned how to deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
But no doubt, when, at 10 o'clock the other night, right when the PC game ends and we're going live 5 minutes after the game ends, a lot of people are going to watch.
Exactly.
A lot of people want to tune in after the game ends. So, that there's a lot of eyeballs, right? I mean, PC was one of 15 teams left and I go live moments after the game ends. You still feel those pre-game jitters. It takes me back to time when I was an athlete. You still have those butterflies. And I would always hope that I have them, because if I didn't have them, I'd think that, I'd be mailing it in, and you never want to mail it in, right?
Exactly.
Even the greatest coaches of all time, for all that they've accomplished, and they've accomplished a whole hell of a lot more than I have, they still want to improve. They still want to prove the doubters wrong, right? So with me, it's all right. I know what I've done to this point is great, but I always want to make sure, what if there's a new person tuning in for the first time? I want to make a good impression, so you'll never get back that first impression. And I hope if somebody watches me for the first time, I'm on my A game. I try to be on my A game every single time. You never know who's watching, and it'll always keep you sharp. It'll always keep you humble.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely always try to keep that in account for myself as well. Obviously, like I said, still at like a low level, but like you said, you got to build it up and work your way up. And once you get there, just, roll with it, like you said. And as far as you, like, your career so far at WPRI since 2018, what's your mindset like when your boss is like, yeah, Morey, we want you to be the guy covering the Super Bowl, like the World Series, the Stanley Cup, and like things like that. And like not only have the chance to report on it, but to travel and like sit and watch these like experiences and these crazy games.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling to be able to run a department at this age, in this type of market, with the demand that are in the Providence, New Bedford television market. Part of our market goes Southeastern Mass. Obviously, the majority of our market is in Rhode Island. But I believe that it's one of the best sports markets in the country, bar none. A lot of it is due to the success that the teams have had, and everything we've gotten to cover recently. But it's also the breadth of teams that we get to cover. So we get the flavor and the flair of the Boston pro teams, right? Yeah. I mean, we're technically closer to Foxborough than the Boston stations are. And we're there just as much as them. We still get to go to Boston, and we're there for all the playoff runs, whether it's Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox. But unlike Boston, we get a great college atmosphere, right? Yeah. We get college hockey. PC hockey made it to the Frozen Four a couple of years ago, won a national championship. College basketball around here is bar none. We have a Big East team. We have an Atlantic team. URI was in the round of 32 in back-to-back years. PC just made a Sweet 16. Bryant just got to the dance. And Brown's been on the cusp and the come up the last few years under Mike Martin. So we get the pro level, we get the college level. I love doing Friday Night Lights. There's nothing better than a lot of high school kids tuning in and watching, their friends and watching themselves, and every Friday night competing, on the football field, and then even down to like Little League. I think we were at the Little League World Series 5 out of 6 years.
I saw that, right? Yeah.
I think it's like every level in this market, there's championship teams. The people really care, and the fans are knowledgeable. The audience is knowledgeable, including yourself. So it's been really good. Obviously you can go to a big market and there's, you can make some more money, or you can, be in front of more eyeballs, or you can have better opportunities in some aspects. But to be in Providence, Rhode Island right now, and to been here for the last, I'm starting my 5th year coming up in a couple months. My first year here, I was introduced to it. It was Red Sox World Series over the Dodgers. It was Patriots over the Rams. It was Game 7, Blues, Bruins. And then that summer we were at the Little League World Series, like I said. So just nonstop championship culture here. And it's great. Sometimes the personal life, there are some sacrifices to make when teams do go on runs. You have to cut vacations in half. You have to push vacations off. But to be in this market right now covering sports, I'd put it up to any other market in the country right now.
Yeah, most definitely. That's why I'm trying to get into it as much as I can. Now that I think about it, I'm only 2 years out of high school, so I'm thinking you probably covered a couple of my high school games, back in my playing days as well. Thinking like post game, like you said, like how they do like after when the games are over, they do like the recaps and all that. Now that I'm thinking about it, but that's pretty cool, and that's such a like I said, an opportunity, just doing not just professional but collegiate, high school, little league, just to get everyone involved and everyone tuned in, and that's more eyes on you. And like you said, over the years, you've been learning how to deal with, who's watching, how to prepare, like you said, those pregame jitters. So everything you got to take into consideration, like, diving kind of into your background a little more, your grandfather, how he played a huge role in you becoming a broadcaster. So, for the viewers watching today, tell them about like that story and how he and your family shaped you into becoming the Morey that everyone sees on camera.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. And I really appreciate you asking, because I wouldn't be, doing this interview with you right now if it wasn't for my grandfather.
Right.
It's my father. Unfortunately, just passed in July, but he was my biggest inspiration and my biggest influence on my career. And this is a man who served our country, and a man who was a business owner and a sports lover back home in Philadelphia growing up. And at 39 years old, right around then, a rare recessive gene took his eyesight over a few years. He lost his eyesight and became legally blind. And for the last 50 years of his life, until he passed in July at the age of 89, he was completely blind. So I just turned 27 a few days ago. So he obviously didn't know what I looked like. Envisioned my mom as a young girl. My mom's obviously older now, but he hadn't seen her for the last 40 years, right? So it's pretty hard to wrap your mind around being blind. It's even interesting. Sometimes I'll shut my eyes, even for just 15, 20 seconds, and it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Let alone in your life for 40 years. So we shared a common bond for sports. Age 4, 5, 6, you start growing up, you're playing t-ball, you're playing hoops, you're playing soccer, all these local youth sports. And we shared a bond for sports, and I'd go over to his house and I'd mute the television. Easy as that. And I would give him play-by-play of baseball games, of football games. This was in person up until I graduated high school, went to college in Connecticut. My first job was in Wisconsin, and now I'm here in Providence. So I haven't been super close to home. I'd say in the last about 10 years since I graduated high school. And it extended, those play-by-play sessions extended to, I was on the phone with him at work when I was in my first station in Wisconsin, and I'd call him up and I'd say, "Pops, turn off the radio. I'll give you play-by-play," right? Blind people don't watch games on TV because sometimes the broadcasters will get sidetracked, talk about something else, because even sighted people can see the games going on. So he had to listen to the radio, because even sighted people, when you're listening on the radio, you obviously can't see the play. So it's much more descriptive on the radio. So I tell him, "Hey, turn off the TV if he was with people, or mute the radio. I'll give you play-by-play," right? Foles under center. He's got one man to his right, who was the running back, Corey Clement that year, right? And I'm giving it to him as if I'm the team broadcaster. But that was just a love and a passion that obviously was cultivated when we were young, and continued even when I was, in a different time zone, even when I was 4 or 5 hours away from home. So many iconic memories that we have together, whether it was, on the phone when the Phillies won the World Series, or when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, or, he went to Penn State. So he's a big Penn State fan. So, he was definitely my inspiration there. And it's a pretty unique story.
Definitely.
And is obviously the reason why I wanted to get into the broadcasting field. And I always tell everybody, it doesn't matter who watches me, the audience I have, he'll always be my first.
Yeah, for sure. So you said you started giving play-by-plays when you were 4 to him, and then like since you left for your first job, like at the age of 4, you're giving him play-by-plays and everything like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know how it was when I was 4.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, 4, 5, 6, that age, it kind of started. I was a big baseball player, and he loved baseball. So I specifically remember going to my grandparents' house. It would be a Saturday night. We'd eat dinner. We'd do the Phillies game at 7.
Yeah.
We'd sleep. And then the next day, usually like a Sunday afternoon game to wrap up the series at 1:00 we would do. And then I'd go home, and I was only 20 minutes from them. And obviously still very close to my mom, and my grandmother's still around, knock on wood. So it was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then all the way up until, literally, a week or two before he passed. And we didn't expect it to happen. So died peacefully and was never in pain, God willing. But yeah, I mean, it was middle of baseball season last year, and I was doing a Phillies game for him, or I was doing an NBA playoff game for him. I'd be sitting at home, and I just want to call him up on the phone because I knew that he really appreciated it. I was still getting sort of some practice out of it, doing it for him. He obviously knew what I was talking about, and I knew what he needed out of the game. It's extremely special, extremely rare. Definitely a relationship that I'll always remember and cherish, and was a huge influence. Yeah.
Very, very surreal and very cool to hear. Obviously I've heard the story before, and you went in more depth now, and it's just like thinking about it, like, very, very cool how he's just shaped, the person that you are, and like how you got into it. And like you said, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be doing it, you wouldn't have the passion for it. And, going along like those lines of sports, you said you were a big baseball guy. I saw in your Instagram and like your Twitter bios that it says lifetime stretch 4. So I know that's definitely, it's a basketball reference. I wanted to, talk to you about like, your playing days as well. Like talk about a little bit about what sports you played, and, what sports took to your favor.
Yeah. So I grew up not too far outside of Philadelphia. So we played some pretty good competition in high school. Yeah. I was definitely better at baseball. Played varsity my senior year for basketball, but our 17 league just in high school produced a 7-footer that went to St. Joe's, a 6'11" stretch wing that went to Texas, and then ended up at Temple. A guy who went to Binghamton, started his career there, and was the America East Rookie of the Year. So some really good players in my 17 league, let alone in our district in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of districts. It's obviously a massive state. And like my senior year was like Rondé Hollis Jefferson, who was a first-round draft pick. BJ Johnson played for Lower Merion, where Kobe went, and ended up going to Syracuse, LaSalle, and then had a cup of coffee in the NBA. So, I mean, the talent is just insane. I played hoops growing up. Wasn't great, was good enough to play some varsity on a suburban league team. But baseball is kind of more where I thrived. Still some regrets to this day that I didn't, try to walk on in college or try to go get scouted and played. But potential opportunity there to play at Ithaca in New York. And then I ended up choosing Quinnipiac because I wanted to cover Division I sports at the end of the day. And so I caught in baseball and played with a ton of talent. So, playing, obviously helped shape and cultivate the love as well, right?
Exactly.
Not just it was important too that I played. And I still play up until this day. 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'm hooping wherever. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm either throwing up a picture. I've talked about it before. I'll play at Health Tracks in EP Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's a run at Bishop Hendricken on Monday nights. There's a run, I'm thinking here, in East Providence, EP High School on Sunday mornings, at the JCC on Saturdays. So there's always runs for me to join. And
you have to.
I think if you're in it, you got to play it, right?
Of course.
I guess, I shouldn't say you don't have to, but it helps if you're out there on the court a lot, right?
Right.
And playing. So I know you were a big hooper too.
Yeah. I'm actually playing later tonight, matter of fact, but because I'm from Johnston, so like this, we had a rec center built a couple years back, probably when you started at WPRI in 2018, and we've been since high school. All my friends, we've been hooping there ever since. And like you said, like you just got to stay around it. At the end of the day, you were a student of the game, and now you're covering it, and it just helps you build even more knowledge, like day in and day out. And my next question actually was about Quinnipiac, like how you decided, and you just answered it for me. It was to cover Division I sports, go over to the Division I level, which I'm seeking, and I'm trying to make my transfer over to URI for next year. So that'll be cool to cover Division I sports and, see what I can get myself into. But, as far as the programs at Quinnipiac for you, what did you know, or like, what did you think of the programs, and what did you know to like get yourself into and involved with to get your name out there as a broadcaster and with all these internships and things like that?
Yeah, I didn't really know much about Quinnipiac. It's interesting. My grandparents, on the side that I had this special relationship with my grandfather, they were neighbors with some folks that are still friendly with the family. And one of their daughters lives up in Connecticut. So when I was looking at like, oh, you should check out this school, Quinnipiac, it's on the rise. It's not too big of a school. I didn't want a huge school. My dad grew up in Syracuse, so everybody talks about Newhouse being, the best or one of the best journalism schools in the country.
Yeah.
But at Newhouse, have to wait until like your junior or senior year to get on the air.
Right.
Excuse me, to start getting reps. At Quinnipiac, like the first week or two, I was like broadcasting a soccer game. I was writing an article on the volleyball team. So much like in sports, the only way you get better, like you're doing here, the only way you get better doing radio is by hosting a podcast. The only way you get better by being on TV or being a writer is by doing, right? Is by reps. If you want to be a better shooter, you're not getting better by sitting on your fanny playing video games, right? You're in the gym getting up thousands of shots a day. You'll be better. If you get 1,000 shots a day for 7 days, you'll be 7,000 shots better than you were at the beginning of the week, right? And you stack those weeks and you stack those months and those years. So I went to Quinnipiac with that mindset. It was like, okay, if by the time I'm a junior at Quinnipiac, I've written 50 game stories and anchored 25 shows and hosted a radio show once a week and did play-by-play for these games, well, I'll have 400 or 500 more reps than I would if I went to another school or a bigger school where I was just waiting. And you can't learn how to be on the radio. You can't learn how to host your own podcast by reading it out of a textbook, right? You can't be in a lecture hall and say, oh, okay, yeah, now I know what to do, right? You have to create that voice. You have to learn what works for you, and everybody's got their own style. So that's the biggest reason why I went to Quinnipiac. I wanted to be a player come day one. And start that process of improving right away. So that come the end of 4 years, I had 4 full years of experience going into my first job.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And I have that same mindset, like going into it, like you have to, like you said, reps, you have to do as much as you can to get your name out there. And like, my first year at Rick was like cut short. Well, it wasn't cut short, but like there wasn't any in-person things. There was nothing like on campus due to COVID. So I wasn't involved, I don't like right now I write, I'm a broadcaster. I do all these things involved with the school. I didn't do any of that. So the idea of this podcast came about. Of course, a bunch of people started doing podcasts when COVID was going on. It just came about. And I was like, if broadcasting is something I want to get serious with, this is a perfect avenue. Social media is the perfect avenue to get your name out there and just to reach out to people. Like I reached out to you. I reached out to, so many people down at URI to get connections early on before I even get there. And like you said, cover as many things as you can. Like next week, I'm covering the lacrosse game. I don't know the first thing about lacrosse, but you gotta do your research. You gotta cover it as best you can. And like you said, reps is the most important thing to do. And I applaud that, and I would take that advice in any day. And like I told you at the beginning of the show, I appreciate you just coming on and sharing that knowledge. I know time's kind of getting a little bit close, but I actually did want to ask you, your first time being on camera, first couple of times being on camera, and once you started getting used to it. Was there ever a time that you remember that you might have like slipped up, maybe started over your words, and that moment kind of still sticks with you to this day?
Oh man, I mean, there's not one that sticks out, Cam, but it's every time I'm on.
Yeah.
It's not every time I'm on live, but the hardest thing in this business is when you're doing something taped. So every night after we do our sportscast at 11, I'll tape morning sports for the next day. And there's times where I'll mess up something. Got to start it over, right? And all of those little mistakes, they humble you, right? Yeah. So like live, you have to just roll with it and you continue to talk. Right. And the best on the business are the ones that make a mistake and don't allow the audience to know or limit the way it looks.
Right.
Right. They don't show that they made a mistake as much, or they'll play it off as a joke, right? It's Scott Van Pelt. It's Joe Buck, all the biggest names in broadcasting, they all make mistakes. They say something that that maybe there was an incorrect stat. The way that though they deal with that mistake makes them so good. It's not just about how good you can be live, right? Yeah. Everybody can be live, right? Yeah. It's how sometimes when you start to falter or somebody's trying to distract you or something, that focus is important. So it happens all the time. I'm doing a stand-up for the following day, and psychologically in your head, okay, this isn't live. So if I don't feel like myself, just if I feel myself off a little bit, then I know I can restart. So it's that all the time. So make mistakes. It's all about making mistakes and learning from them.
I've learned that, firsthand on the broadcast. You just kind of you have to like pick up with it and, do the best you can with it. So like I said, I was like, that kind of wraps up our time. I appreciate you just taking the time and, sitting down with me, extending our conversation from the last time I saw you at Rhode Island College. I just wanted to close out the show and ask you, what did you think about the show? What did you think about the lineup? And, I'm trying to reach out to these big name guys like PC guys and things like that to try to come on. Who might you want to see as like a future guest on the podcast?
Yeah, I think there's so many different guests that you could have. There's coaches, there's players, there's broadcasters even in our market. That's the best thing is, okay, we're all competition here in the market, channel 6, channel 10, but, they're all great people, great men, great women. We're on the road with them. We were just on the road. We were just on the road with them in Chicago and in New York and in Buffalo.
Sick. That's crazy.
So whether it's any of those people. Yeah. So no, I mean, anybody you get from this market would be a great guest. And, if you're ever looking for an internship, we'd be happy if you applied and, maybe we could make something work. Cause it seems like you're a grinder. It seems like you fit the mold at Channel 12 and you've got a passion for this, and it's great. And part of my job is giving back, to our interns and finding those people and highlighting those people that are up and comers in the industry and those who I might need to call on one day for a job. So consider this an invitation and hopefully we'll talk soon.
I appreciate it, Morey. Thank you for the time, and I'll talk to you soon for sure. Thank you.
You got it, Cam. Thanks.
No problem, man.